Hey guys, it's Brooklyn Lou the Skeptic, former evangelical, now turned atheist. And today I have a special treat, and I'm excited because I love to talk to people who are getting the word out about free thinking and atheism and are pushing back against Trumpism. And I love this content creator. It's the Punk Apostate, Brently. So I want to bring him in, and we're just going to chat and talk all things atheism, punk rock, whatever. So come on in, Punk Apostate.
Hey, how's it going?
Things are okay over here.
Oh yeah.
So I've been following you on the YouTube. I check out your morning shows. It's been my habit lately to go through in the morning, having on the morning atheist show, the Damn Show.
Oh yeah.
And then I pop on you right after, and I get to see my morning content like that.
Oh hell yeah. That's a great show. I love the daily atheist morning shows. Dudes are awesome.
Yeah. And a lot of the people, it's good because I see some people go from them to you in the comment section.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a similar time. So I guess there's a blending there of audience.
Yeah, I lucked out. Like it was like one of the I hung out with Chris Mallard the other day, and he was like, if you would just schedule, because I had the hardest time scheduling stuff. I just would just go live, and then people would have to just be randomly aware of like who's going live randomly all the time to get there. But people would get there immediately. But anyway, so he was like, dude, you got to start scheduling your lives. And I was like, I don't do that for the longest time. And then finally he was like, dude, just schedule your log. And I was like, all right, fine. I'll start schedule. And then, yeah, just like you said, like I guess they have this ability to send their audience over to a different show when it gets
Yeah.
So that was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a trip in the morning. I like Durante and Ryan. And, and Chris is so fast. You gotta pay attention because you'll miss something.
Right? Yeah. He's got that quick wit. I like that.
I find you like that, by the way, Brently.
Oh, thanks.
You're very fast.
Right. I don't like dead air. I like to keep it moving. But yeah.
I love your wit because you're watching these videos and you can quickly think of something like that comes right to your mind that's kind of funny, because these fundies they're literally funny if you can take them lightly, and not take them too serious.
Oh yeah,
because the things they say are so far out.
Oh my god, it's incredible, and it's fascinating to me just how much of the stuff they say that I used to believe in acts like totally normal. I would think this stuff was just so normal, all the way to like reptilian humanoids and stuff. I think that was where I drew the line. I was like, okay, I don't know about the reptilian stuff, but like everything before that, I was like, totes, yes, of course. What are you talking about? Of course, the Illuminati is getting ready to bring the Antichrist into the. What are you talking? Of course. What are you? Yeah.
I think that it's just my personal take is that Christians can be very, very gullible because they could believe anything, Once you get beyond the talking snakes and the donkeys and, these crazy stories, I guess you might believe almost anything, right?
Pretty much. Well, I mean, that's what I always used to say. Like, look, if you set up an epistemological framework where it's reasonable to believe in a talking donkey having a debate with a guy and winning, but it's unreasonable to believe like demonstrative science, like evolution, you can't tell anything. Everything is up for grabs at that point. You know what I mean? Like, this doesn't matter. So yeah,
it really is so true, and that's my experience actually interacting with Christians every day.
Right.
The religious ones, the ones that make it known. They want to spread the word, and it's out there, way out there.
Oh yeah, and there's a difference. I do like. I feel like I have to say there is like a difference between people that are just like normal Christians, I guess I could say, are just sort of like those people. They're like, yeah, I like going to church sometimes and stuff, whatever. Grandma likes it when I go. I don't know. Those types of people are different than you have to follow all the rules. The earth is 6,000 years old. All this type of stuff. It's a level of dedication, I guess. Once you get too dedicated, then you're just crazy. I don't know. But
yeah. And I come out of the real dedicated version. So I know you did too. Yeah. So I guess I relate to you in that way. But let me ask you something. How old are you?
I am 40 years old. I'll be 41 this coming summer.
Okay. I'm 62, and I wanted to know, what kind of punk rock were you into?
Me. I always when I originally, was growing up as a youngster, I was listening to stuff that was like 20 years before I was born. When I was really young, right? When I was like in my 12, 13 years old, and we were listening to like what we called old school punk, which was kind of like the Subhumans, Sex Pistols, stuff like that. A lot of British stuff, right? But it was kind of like, by the time we were around, there was all this new school type stuff too, and it had sort of branched out into all these different kinds of punk. So you had, you had the old school stuff like that was a little bit slower, wasn't as fast as what we were used to, and just kind of shouty and everything like that. But by the time we got, like, I really got into it was when it was like in the 90s, and they started doing like the speed. It was like speed punk kind of meets like pop punk, kind of like Motorhead type sounding stuff. I don't know, like real fat, like Offspring kind of is a good example of like a popular one. They kind of got big.
Was Green Day big?
Yeah, Green Day, that would fit in there. I feel like they're a little bit slower. I don't know, because they're like the popular ones. I'm trying to think of like the ones that aren't as popular that people know about. But yeah, no, I mean, Green Day is still good. They're really good. I love Green Day. But the stuff that I was listening to was a little bit angrier, a little bit faster, like no effects over here, Bad Religion, stuff like that,
Now, I have a little experience in punk rock.
Oh, no way.
But it goes way back to the time before you were born. Back in the music you may have listened to. But when I was like 18 years old, I was into punk rock. And the bands I used to listen to were the Ramones, the Clash.
Oh, shit. Hell yeah.
The New York Dolls.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have you ever heard
That's obscure. Yeah, I've heard of them, but I don't know if I've like ever actually listened to them, but I've seen their posters and stuff.
Did you ever hear of the Electric Chairs?
The Electric Chairs? No, I don't think so.
Oh my gosh. You got to check it out. That's all I got to tell you.
Electric Chairs.
You know why? Because not only were they a cool punk band way back, but they were leading a call for trans rights.
Oh, no shit. Hell yeah.
No shit.
That's awesome.
So it's kind of an interesting band.
Well, and that's funny that you brought that up, because like I've heard a lot of people talk about how quite a few, like a lot of the people are saying that like trans folks were at the center of like where punk actually came from, which, as far as I understand, was like underground New York and places like that. And then I guess there's a lot of discrepancies. A lot of people disagree, but apparently it started in New York, underground New York. Then it made its way to England, and then they kind of fashionized it. They turned it into like all this big fashion stuff, a lot more like, colored hair and, a lot just different looking. I don't know. But as far as I understand, it did start in America, underground New York. But
that's pretty much what I remember.
Right.
And when it went to England, it came back new wave.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's what I was going to say. Because all the new wave dudes, they looked punk. Like if you to look at them, but based on that like British kind of, like I was saying, like the fashion kind of punk look, where it was just sort of like they had their fingernails, done and like kind of like wore makeup and stuff, like just looked crazy, honestly. But that I remember that British punk look, but the new wavers, and I'd see bands and think they were going to be a punk band, and then you're like, oh, it's a new wave band. Okay, whatever. They looked
also
punk.
people like David Bowie. They were very influential.
Oh hell yeah!
And
Bowie's great. Love Bowie.
Lou Reed from New York. I don't know if you ever heard of Lou Reed.
No, I don't know that one.
But these were early pioneers in a way, and they were pro-trans.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting historically, it's like a musical connection.
Oh yeah. That's too funny too, especially have you seen like what John Lydon is like now?
No.
Oh, he's the worst, man. He's a MAGA guy.
No kidding.
No. So like the Sex Pistols right now are on tour. But they're like, we don't want to go on tour with Johnny Rotten. Of course, Johnny Rotten was like, I don't want to do it anyway. So,
wow.
They didn't want to be with him because he's a MAGA dude. Like he's the antithesis of everything punk.
That's crazy.
Like licking billionaire boots. Like, come on, man. But no, yeah. So they're on tour with somebody else singing. I can't remember.
Oh wow! I had no idea. I don't follow punk rock anymore.
Oh yeah.
I wanted you to know I had a little flavor when I was a kid,
Well, you're in the time and place. That's for sure. Hell yeah.
So tell me, Brently, all right, how did you become a fundy?
Let's see. Well, you're kind of born into it, right? Yeah, I was just like born into my family, and they all just decided that that's what I was. Just, upon birth, they're like, "This kid's a Christian," and dedicated me. I'm sure they do that weird thing where you dedicate your child to your religion. It's kind of weird, but yeah, no. So I was born into it. My family was like part of the Jesus movement. They like kind of came out of that whole like hippie, like the hippie movement. That took a weird left turn there at some point and went to Jesusness. But and it was also in the midst of the satanic panic. So a lot of witchcraft stuff, a lot of stoking fears about that, and then just young earth creationism. Like I was homeschooled. And so I was taught at home, like, that science was all stupid and they're all just a bunch of liars that are just hating God, and so that's why they have this evolution thing. So that was where it started. Pretty much, it was just like all the homeschooling and everything.
Now, were you always a true believer at that point in your life, in that era when you were, Christian, or was there a conversion that happened somewhere along the line?
No, I mean, what's weird how these things work, right? Because when you're raised up in this type of stuff, you are just always a believer because that's how it goes. You're born into this family. They're like, hey, you're a Christian. You're like, as the kid, you're like, okay, whatever. But like at some point, they expect you to come up with some sort of story as to, but I did decide on my own too, right? There's like that whole thing. And that's sort of just expected. They call it the testimony, right? You're expected to have a testimony. And so, and I just was sort of always a Christian, but I just recognized pretty quickly, like, oh shit, I got to do some kind of something as a story of like, oh no, the reason I think this isn't just because my parents told me to believe it, right? And so I made up like a story about anger issues and how God saved me from my anger when I was like, I don't know. I think I was 13, 14, somewhere in there. Of course, I was like all dressed punk rock. People aren't buying it, man. If you're like, I was angry and I am no longer angry, that is why I am a Christian punk rocker. It's like, no, you're still angry. It's not like you're a punker, man. Of course you're angry. Like, that's sort of the whole style is built around that emotion.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, but no, yeah, I was a believer. I didn't have any access to any information outside of everything that my family had like curated for me. So I had no reason to believe that they were wrong about anything, Yeah.
And I gotta ask, when was the time when you started realizing that this just doesn't make much sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
Go through that, because that to me is always fascinating when Christians see the light.
Right. Yeah.
And it's the opposite light that they thought. It's like they realize, wow, I'm really believing a bunch of shit.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So wondering, like, how did that happen for you?
I think well, honestly, it was in 2015 was when it started. So it was right when Trump started to do his first campaigning, right? And I remember, like, given the household that I was raised in and everything, it was expected to be a conservative. You're not only a Christian, you were also a conservative. I didn't really know what that meant growing up and everything. Like, I remember being so confused, thinking that, like, you'd be taught that, like, Democrats actually wanted to unalive babies. And you're just, as a kid, that doesn't, you were taught that before you even know what sex is. And yet you're just like, what is wrong with these Democrats? They just want to unalive babies. Why are they so evil? What is their problem? But, like, you don't even understand sex and stuff. So learning stuff all out of order. But but the politics were heavily tied in with all of my beliefs and everything. And so once Trump started running, before that I had, like, had my little talking points, whatever, I'd be like supporting Bush, but it was all just sort of very distant. I didn't really think about it very often. It was just sort of like off in the ether somewhere, just like, oh, if people talk about this, I've got X, Y, and Z talking points, and that's it. Wasn't something I was really thinking about. But when Trump started running, I was, like, older by that time, and I'm starting to actually pay attention a little bit better to politics. And the more I heard Trump talk, the more I'd heard the people, like, supporting him and everything, I was like, this is exactly the antithesis of our beliefs, right? Like, this we can't support this guy, right? You know what I mean? And, like, he's not like, how do you support, like, y'all just impeached a guy because he got a blowjob, and now you, like, the guy that brags about grabbing women by the, that's cool. Like, how did you go from this to that in just, like, 10 years? Like, what's going on here? But so I just wasn't, I thought it was just really wacky. And I was just started to notice all of my friends and family started to defend it just mindlessly. And I'm like, okay, I was like, I can't do this. I can't do the mindlessly defending this guy thing, because I just can't. He's too awful. He's he's just an asshole. Like, just straight up. I can't, and then the more I learned about conservative politics, I knew what I was supposed to support. I knew what I was supposed to say, but I was like, I didn't know anything else about it. So I wanted to, like, find out more. And the more I learned about conservative politics, the more I realized I don't believe this shit, period. And so then it was just like, well, why was it that I was saying that I did believe it for so long? And I was like, well, because I'm a Christian. And then I was like, well, hold on. If those beliefs were incorrect, maybe I don't know about these either. And I kind of just started looking into the Christian beliefs and starting to see, yeah, these beliefs don't add up either. It's a whole lot of just saying I believe stuff because that's what I'm supposed to think. And that's it, So it kind of fell from there.
So you were honest with yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I had to do myself when I deconverted. I had to come to a point where I had to say, am I going to be honest with myself? Right. Or am I just going to pretend?
Right. And that's really what it is. It's like, you will just, and it's, like, weird because you'll get angry at people for not agreeing with you. You know what I mean? Which is kind of strange. Like, people should be able to disagree and you not get mad. But because you know what you're doing in your own head, being dishonest with yourself about it, it's like it makes you more angry for some reason. I think that cognitive dissonance gets in there. Yeah.
I think the word is cognitive dissonance. That's the word.
Right. Yeah.
It's like a tension,
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's like you don't want to think that you're crazy, right? So you got to be like, I'm not crazy to believe this stuff.
Yeah.
You must be the bad guy.
Right. Yeah. You must be deceived by the devil because that's how it's got to be. Yeah. Sad.
So, your YouTube channel, how long you been at it, and what made you start it? Like,
well, let's see. Well, it's taken some different forms over the years. For a time, like when I first started, it was with my partner. Her and I did like a political podcast. She was a political poli sci major, so like she she knew a lot about politics and stuff. So I didn't know anything, obviously, about politics the way I was grew up and everything. So that was really helpful for me in the early years, just kind of learning about politics, how it works, what the two belief systems are, how they implement stuff, all that type of stuff. So like when Trump was doing everything he was doing the first go around was actually really a great way to learn about politics, because you could see how you could see like how it's supposed to go and then how he's breaking all the rules, but whatever. And so that was like our first show. It's called Unapologetics, and kind of went from there. Our schedule sort of changed, so we had to like switch stuff up, and then I started going on my own. And I switched over to doing Punk Apostate, I want to say like a year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that. And it's been great. I really enjoy it. I like doing it by myself now because it's just a lot easier to try to schedule things and stuff like that, you know.
So what happened to the Unapologetic channel?
I think it's still up. Like I think it's still up on like Spotify and stuff. It was just audio. It was a podcast.
Oh, okay. You know? It wasn't a YouTube thing?
No. I think we did it. I think, you know, given the way that the videos or the podcast would go out, it would go out as an audio only YouTube video. But I feel like that doesn't really count. It was just like where you could listen to it if you don't only had YouTube or whatever. But yeah, no, it was just audio only at first. It took me a while to get used to being on camera. You know?
I've never used to being on camera. I mean, doing this is getting a little easier because I'm sitting in my own little comfortable room, and you know,
right?
I don't have to worry about anything. So, yeah. But I'm not a person who is comfortable being under camera. You know,
right?
I never felt like I was a good public speaker or any of that stuff.
Right. I'm the same way. That's why I started doing the daily thing. Honestly, I was like, well, if I do it enough, I'll get used to it eventually. At some point, I'll be like, this isn't awkward anymore. I don't even know if I could say that that's true even still, but yeah. Oh well.
Well, what you're doing is very authentic. I like that, you know.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, it's kind of fun. And like I said, your wit, you come up with stuff that comes right to your mind that demonstrates the preposterous nature of these, you know, these beliefs that these people have. You know, it's totally crazy. Like today, I heard you talking about you had a video of the guy who is, you know, claiming he is the natural next pope, but he's also like the head of every religion. Right?
Yeah. He's just oh yeah, and the fundies love this guy for like saying that he's probably the Antichrist. Because, you know, they're always looking for the Antichrist. But this dude's like, dude, once you start saying stuff like that, you lose literally everybody, because now you're mixing different religions and stuff, so you lose from both. Like, you know what I mean? Like once you start crossing the borders from one religion into a different one, like nobody's gonna stick around for that. You know what I mean? It's kind of silly. But yeah, the original goal I had with this show was to make it sound as much like stand-up as humanly possible. So like, you know, because I really love watching stand-up, so I wanted to do like figure out a way to like just react to stuff and do it impulsively and everything, but like have it still sort of feel like it was some kind of stand-up routine. You know what I mean? but all done off the top of your head. It's kind of a fun little game, I guess I was playing with myself. So
I think that's called improv, isn't it?
yeah, it kind of is, right? Like usually you have other people to yes and your stuff, but yeah, like,
yeah, it's funny stuff when you could do it, because
right.
Improv is funny.
Oh my God, so fun. Yeah,
I'm for anything that makes people think,
Oh yeah. Well, comedy's kind of always been like that, right?
Yeah.
Like the greats, like, always wanted to make you actually sit and think about stuff,
Yeah. I love comedy like that, because it's it's not telling you how to think, but it does make a thought come where you might have to actually think about something that was said in a more serious way.
Right. Yeah.
George Carlin was great at that.
I was just about to say George Carlin. He's like one of my favorites.
I think he's the classic of doing that.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's the beauty of comedy, is like what they do. What makes it so cool is that you're right. They're not telling you exactly what to think or whatever, but they kind of like frame things in a way that sort of force that thought into a corner in your head, so that you have to think the thought, even though you're not in, what I mean? You kind of have to see it from the way that they've put it, you know what I mean? And so it to the degree where you're almost automatically agreeing with him, and that makes it funny, right? That makes you laugh, because you're like, oh, I see what the way angle that he's bringing. That's funny,
yes.
Right? So it is a way to kind of slip in their just like a subliminal idea of just, hey, have you ever thought of it like this kind of thing?
Oh yeah, it's fascinating, and it's definitely a mental thing that goes on. Like even your subconscious mind and then your conscious mind, and comedy has a way of kind of hitting both,
Hell yeah. 100%.
And even if you disagree with what the comedian is saying, you could still laugh,
right?
You still find it funny,
Hell yeah.
So, yeah, I've always loved that aspect of comedy. I love the performing arts. I love bands, rock music, all types of music. And I love entertainment, but you know what? You got to know what's entertainment and what's reality. And I think sometimes the Christian world, like, they don't understand what's real and what's like for entertainment purposes.
Right. Well, the lines kind of got blurred, it seems, over, like, I guess in that same time period that I was raised with, like, reality TV kind of like becoming a thing.
Yes.
Which is all bullshit. It's not, it's not exactly scripted, but it's not real. You know what I mean? Like, it's not it doesn't even matter what show, even the shows where they're like walking through and picking the house, that they're like, I don't know, should we pick this one or should we pick that? No, all that's decided ahead of time, like, it's so clear. But, like I said, and so I almost feel like that's almost been one of the things that's kind of screwed with our ability as Americans to, like, be able to even think about politics, because politics is fucking boring until, like, but you bring in some TV star that's treating everybody like garbage, being mean. It's like a dude from a reality TV show. And then it's like, oh, now politics is on the front page of all the newspapers because it's just so batshit that everybody can't stop thinking about it. And it's literally dictated how stupid our politics have gotten. You know what I mean? Like, I swear to God, that's like what's happening. It's ridiculous.
You made a very interesting point there about reality TV shows. Okay. I learned that reality TV shows weren't reality when I lived out in California for a while. And my daughter was in the entertainment business. Okay. And we used to get all these things for casting calls, where an agent would send you all these different shows that are auditioning for people to be on the shows, actors and actresses type stuff.
Right.
And all the time we would see new reality show, right? So they're auditioning for the reality show. So
Yeah.
the minute you're at that point, obviously it's not reality.
Right. Yeah. It's again like it's just not every line is scripted. That's it. It's like, but when it comes to like them, like trying to think of a good example, but like the Real Housewives, like they get mad over the dumbest stuff. There's no possible way they actually give a crap about like who was sitting where at what's her name's birthday or whatever. Like I was supposed to be sitting in the middle because it was my birthday, and then like they freak out about that and have like a big fight and everything, and it's like, come on, the producer was like, I don't know, just fight over like who's sitting where or something. I don't know. Who cares? Just get mad at each other. It's boring. Like, you know, like that's, I swear to God.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet there are many, many people who think that's literally real.
Yeah.
And it shocks me. Yeah.
Right.
People really think that's real. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty bad. I think the worst are like the towing company ones where they like, you know, they tow people's cars and all that.
Yeah.
It's all fake. Every bit of it. It's so funny.
Yep. So when you were growing up Christian fundy, did you have a particular denomination or a church that you went to as a family?
Yeah. We were part of the Calvary Chapel movement, right? I mean, that was where I think before that it was just evangelical, really. But the Calvary Chapel was the church that my family like really kind of settled into when I want to say like in my, I don't know, 8, 9 years old, something like that. And they just stayed there pretty much throughout. That's the one that movie, the Jesus Revolution, was about with Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah,
was playing the head, Chuck Smith of that church. It was, like I said, it was like a hippie thing, and their whole bag was that you know, all are welcome, right? And you don't have to wear shirt and shoes or whatever. You know, no shirt, no shoes, no problem. Come to our church, whatever. That was their thing, and so, but it's still very fundamentalist. Like a lot of people think that, oh, since he was like so chill with the hippies and everything, that he must be a more chill kind of, it must be like a more chill kind of Christianity. It's not. They're like super hardcore fundamentalists. They just don't care how you dress, which was kind of like which was kind of funny because like we were all dressed as punks and everything. You know, we like wore, you know, Punks for Jesus jackets and stuff like that. But it was just funny because like we're also fundamentalists, you know, so it was just weird that we would be dressed like that and everything, because like we would run into like Baptists. There was one time we played a show as like our original like punk band, and when we were like 13, 14 years old, and we played a show at this church, this Baptist church. A friend of ours got like us the gig or whatever, and they were drinking alcohol at the church, and we were blown away. We're like, what the fuck is that, a keg? Like, what are they doing? You can't have that at a church. That's against some kind of law or something, right? But they were allowed. And they thought we were, you know, all like they were judging us because we had like Liberty spikes and jackets and all this stuff like that, where they were all dressed like churchgoers and everything. And then we're judging them for drinking alcohol, you know, at their church or whatever. So like we're sitting there judging each other for different stuff. It's just funny, you know, it just shows like how different.
So it was a judge fest.
Yeah, basically. I know why it's Christianity in general, right?
It is. I'm judging you for that, and you're judging me for that. Hurry up, let's open the book.
Yep. Yeah, that we could all feel guilty together. Jesus.
Oh wow! You know, I was part of Calvary Chapel too.
Oh no way!
Like coincidence.
Oh yeah,
that's where I was saved.
Really? Oh, that's too funny! Wow. And we're both in Florida. This is crazy. That's
well,
awesome.
I was in New York, and Calvary Chapel, as you know, has a whole bunch of different churches around the country. And the thing is, I've noticed now, when I was involved in that movement, it was not the same as what I see today, because I couldn't imagine the Christians that I used to hang out with when I just was freshly saved. And I can't imagine them having supported Trump. And yet I know they did. because I have a contact with someone who still goes to the old church I used to go to.
Wow.
And I asked, how did they feel about Trump? And they all were supporting Trump. And I don't get it. It's like when I was there, I don't think they would have done that.
Right. Yeah.
Because it was more like flower power and, freedom. Like you say, the dress thing was big thing with Chuck Smith.
Yeah.
You could come in our church barefoot.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Whoa.
We'll wash your feet like weirdos.
But somehow they became very, very conservative. And that I just fascinated. Like, I wonder how that happened because I wasn't there, I already left.
Yeah. Well, it's just thinking of Trump being conservative is just so weird too. Like conservative like almost doesn't mean anything anymore.
Oh, no.
What I mean? It's so weird.
No, I was talking to a Christian on my channel just the other day, and he does think that Trump is a Christian. I'm like,
wow. Okay.
I mean, how naive can you be to think Trump is actually a Christian? Like he's doing his best to live for Jesus Christ.
Right. No, he just knows what words to say to get what he wants from people. That's all. That's like the one thing that I'll give him is he's good at. He's good at lying and manipulating people. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. So now that you're out, and how long ago was it that you kind of got out of Christianity?
So, it'd be about 10 years, right? Because it was 2015 when I started. I'm not sure exactly the time.
9-10 years.
But yeah, Trump becoming president, that was why I was able to sync that up with like my deconstruction and everything. Because at the time too, I meant to mention this earlier when we were talking about comedy and stuff, was a big part of what got me out of it was listening to a comedy podcast called God Awful Movies. And that was like one of those. Yeah. That show is great. But like they just, they make fun of Christian movies, which I knew tons of Christian movies because of being raised the way I was, right? And so I knew all the movies. So a lot of it was just them making fun of how bad the movies were. So I could agree with them even as a Christian at most of the jokes. And then it just kind of like we were talking about with comedy, kind of forcing you to see stuff from a certain perspective. When they started talking about how harmful the ideas are of religion and why exactly, it was like, oh shit, I didn't even, put that together. But it was kind of a confluence of things, right? Like it was my partner who was a poli-sci major and Trump running, all this type of stuff happening at the same time, kind of all led to it collapsing pretty quickly, my beliefs there. But
now, since they collapsed and since they've been gone, I'm wondering how your life is doing. How's your mental well-being? How do you think your life is going now that you gave up the God?
Right. Well, definitely better at a lot of different stuff. I think there's some things that you kind of have to end up being like more mentally strong than before, because you don't have like some kind of package deal meaning of life. You're supposed to do this, supposed to do that kind of playbook that I think is comforting to a lot of people. You don't have that. You have to decide for yourself and figure out how you want your life to go by your decision making, and none of it's part of a plan or anything. And that can be kind of daunting for a lot of people, I think. But other than that situation, I feel like I've kind of moved my way through that pretty well. It's not always perfect, but other than that, like just being able to not be taken advantage of constantly by people using, my gullibility to just kind of be able to do whatever, you could, when you have that level of gullibility, you can convince people of anything, and people can take advantage of people like constantly. I mean, you see like most of my family, for one, they were stuck in MLMs for a time, right? Because you can't tell when people are taking advantage of you, because you've kind of just you've kind of just consented to allowing people to take advantage of you regularly by your own will, right? So it's like you can't even really separate that out when you're living life, and yeah, so it's definitely made things a lot better in that regard. The other thing was just sobriety was a lot easier. I couldn't I couldn't get clean. I did have an issue with opiates for years on end. When I left the church and everything, and could not get clean. And I was still a Christian. I just, I was going to all the Christian, I don't know, drug counselors and all that type of stuff. They didn't know what the hell they're talking about at all. Everything was just, you're a bad person for doing this stuff. And so just stop, just let Jesus take the wheel or whatever. And it's like, none of that means anything, And so when you actually are trying to let Jesus take the wheel and you're suffering under those types of situations, those addictions and things like that, it's just really frustrating, even though you're trying to do everything right according to them, but none of it works because it's just made up nonsense. Just like, just let the magic fix you. And it's like, there is no fucking magic, man. Like, it's not working. But so that was much better. Yeah.
It's like screaming, take the wheel.
Right. Yeah, man. I'm in the back seat of this.
Nothing's happening.
Yeah, exactly. But so that was cool. Like that was super helpful. And then just from then on, getting the mental health help that I needed was so much easier because you realize that, there isn't some just guidebook that you're just doing everything you're supposed to do. There is none of that. You have to make your own decisions. You have to take responsibility for your decisions and for the things that, for your own life and everything, which again can be daunting to a lot of people, but you got to take responsibility at some point, and worry about your own mental health and everything, but you actually have resources that actually work. So that's that was a huge plus as it applies to coming out of all of those mental health issues. It's not perfect. I don't have perfect mental health, but it's a hell of a lot better than it was when I was a Christian. That's for sure.
I think that one of the big things when you come out of the religion and you realize that you are responsible for your own behavior, and there's no magic that's going to be applied to make you good. If you're going to be a good person, it's because you decided to be a good person, right?
Right.
In Christianity, we were always putting everything on the God. Well, if the God, I could only be good unless the God comes in me and makes me good, Right. So I find that Christianity is kind of like not taking responsibility.
Exactly.
You're always throwing anything, your cares are being thrown on, the God. And it's like, you're not facing reality. I mean, that's how I see it now,
Definitely. I mean, and that's a huge problem. It basically makes all good and evil completely meaningless because everybody's evil. The second that you're born, you're evil, which means that the word evil doesn't mean anything, right? Because if you're just all evil and then you get forgiveness, now you're not evil anymore. I mean, you are evil, you're forgiven though. So that, I guess that's better or whatever, but it really makes it difficult to have conversations with kids about like right and wrong. If you're like, okay, but if I do wrong, I just can go get forgiveness, no matter how wrong the wrong was.
Yes.
You can just go get forgiveness. And it's like, that's so messed up. Like you need to go, like you said, like take responsibility. If you hurt somebody, you need to go make things right with them, not some magical thing that doesn't, you know what I mean? That you could just say you're sorry to the nothing and then you feel better. And say, I'm sure that makes you feel good, but it doesn't do anything for the person you hurt, that's not helpful at all when it comes to
it leads to a lot of problems, really.
For
it
real,
really does. I mean, if you can base your mental health on reality, you're going to be so far much ahead of the game. Once you bring in these delusional imaginary things, and you actually embrace it as though it's real, I think your head gets screwed up.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember it was funny. Like we were talking the other day, like with morality. Like I remember being so difficult because good guys always have to be good and bad guys always have to be bad. One of the movies we used to watch, like movies taped off TV and stuff, right? So it was like this is a rated R movie, but it was taped off TV. So I would be allowed to watch like Rambo 2, and I was allowed to watch Rambo 3 taped off TV. But I couldn't watch Rambo 1 taped off TV. And the interesting thing was because the morality was backwards, according to my mom. So she was like, that'll confuse him, right? Because the cops were the bad guys. The cops were bad in the first Rambo. Yeah.
They were bad in the first Rambo.
They were the bad guys, right? But that's too, like, I was like, wait, you get it. Cops are always good. What are you talking about? Like that, you can't have the morality be like murky, even the tiniest bit for my family, because they thought that would be really confusing. And when all of your morality is based on dedication to a religion, it is confusing. You know what I mean? Like it and I remember that really bothered me in movies. I would watch them like, but who's supposed to be the good guy in this? And they'd be like, it's Pulp Fiction. I don't know. Everybody's just sort of doing their thing, man. I don't know. Some of them are good. Like, you decide. What do you think? You think they're good or the bad? And so that was like, wait a second. There has to be a clear good guy. There has to be a clear bad guy. Otherwise, I can't watch this movie because I'm confused. But like that was, it really did mess me up. But that's what that kind of religious belief does to people. It makes everything so absolutist, right? And then at the same time does nothing, because good just means being a Christian, right? Believing something doesn't make you good. Just thinking something is true doesn't do anything for how you treat other people and everything.
Of course not.
Right? But they seem to think so, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the common sense, really.
Right. That's what kills me when they say, like, I'll do a lot of, I used to do a lot more Ray Comfort type of videos, and one of the things that he does, are you familiar with Ray Comfort at all?
Oh yeah.
You ever? Yeah.
Oh,
I remember watching his videos when I was a kid. I think that's why I watch him so much now. But and his whole thing, of course, is to just try to get you to feel like you're a bad person, and then he offers you the solution to being a bad person, which is his religion makes you a good person if you just repent for the nothing that you did. But like he would say that looking with lust is the same thing as adultery. And
yes.
As far as like religious, like right and wrong stuff goes, a lot of times I disagree, but I do think adultery is wrong. I don't think it should be legally wrong. I don't think you should go to jail. But morally, I feel like it is wrong to cheat on somebody, right? Like that's pretty basic. And so he's trying to make you feel like you consciously hurt somebody on purpose by betraying their trust by just looking at somebody and lusting. Right? That's the same thing. That's what he's trying to get you to connect in your head.
Yes. And what's crazy is that your thoughts become criminal in the Christian world. Yeah. And that's probably why they spend most of their time trying to condition their mind with only Christian things.
Right.
Oh, yeah. That's why I guess the parents, like your parents was saying, oh no, we can't expose him to these non-Christian things, right, because he might have a thought.
Might think some of those thoughts and then have demons get in there. Yeah. Jeez. That is crazy.
It fascinates me, like, but aren't they always trying to only absorb Christian material? It's like,
oh yeah.
We need to have the Christian music and the Christian television and, the Christian, everything we do, you get in my car, you're going to hear that praise and worship music.
Yep. Oh
And
yeah.
we're all going to take a moment and go, ooh.
Right. Oh, that's when you finally get down that rabbit hole, is when you're like, I actually don't even listen to Christian music. I just listen to worship. Thank you very much. And like,
Right,
I'm better than everybody. Yeah.
right,
That's
right.
like
Or if a bad song comes on the radio, the mother or father has to, oh, let me turn that.
right. Yeah, exactly. Jeez. I remember, like, and growing up the way that we did, there was a lot of Christian at the time, because it was like the early 2000s. So I like graduated in 2003, right? Graduated. I was homeschooled, so it didn't do it. They're just like, okay, no more school. That was graduation for you. Okay, cool, thanks. That was it. But in 2003, so like punk was actually kind of hitting the mainstream. That was sort of like when like Offspring, Blink-182, and Green Day, Green Day was always already big, but like it kind of hit this precipice of like explosion or whatever. And you had all these like pop beat punk bands like getting big and everything. Ska bands. There was like also the what's that band? Crap, I can't think of their name. Boss Tones got big. There was a bunch, of like subculture stuff kind of getting big at that time. And so Christian everything's always off by about a decade, it seems, so a lot of but at that time it was like they had a lot of Christian punk bands and stuff. And so, yeah, it was, I mean, some of it I will say was decent. There were some decent ones. Dogwood was decent. I'll give it to them. There's a band called Goatee Hook. Decent. They were kind of fun. Slick Shoes, another Christian punk. MXPX. They started Christian, but then they decided not to be halfway through or something. I don't know what happened. They was like, yeah, we just did that so we could get big because y'all are easy, because you don't have to be that good. You could just be like halfway kind of decent, and the Christian producer like, throw money at him, get him on tour right now, like so. But yeah, so there was a lot of that going on when I was growing up. But it kind of fell into that, like Christianity has their own version of everything, to the point where they even had like hardcore bands where they'd be like, Jesus, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is although it did kind of fit quite a bit with the metal and everything, because they're like, blood, God, Jesus, and you're like, yeah, that fits. It's a blood cult, so I get it. But
I want to tell you, I can relate to that because I was Christian during those times, and I remember going to a Christian coffee house.
Was it called Hebrews? Was it called Hebrews?
No. And this is in Florida.
Oh, okay.
In the Ocala area.
Oh, okay. Right.
And it really was a nice place. It really was. It was a cool place. It'd have live music some nights, and they were open to any new bands that come along, as long as they have a tinge of Christianity in there.
Right. Yeah. Can't be like saying the F word too often up on.
Yeah, just a little. As long as there was a little Christianity in it, they were kind of okay. You can come play. You probably had that when you were doing the punk music, right? They say, oh well, there's some Christian angle here.
Oh yeah, yeah. We had this. It was weird. Like downtown St. Petersburg at the time in the '90s had this place called the Refuge, and it was a homeless shelter. But it was put on by this Christian guy. He was a bit more progressive of a Christian, though. He had a real heart for the homeless, right? And so he would do these shows, and then he would, get all the money from those shows, and then buy food for homeless people with it. And then he would use the venue as like a place they can sleep on the floor. You would have like mats and stuff on the floor and stuff like that for them to sleep there. So that was like one of my that was like one of my main like places that I frequented, and they had all sorts of bands there, like Christian and non-Christian too. Yeah, but it was really cool.
Yeah, and at the coffee house I used to go to, they would have Christian heavy bands, Christian punk bands that were along the lines of like the Blink-182. That type of sound, but they would proclaim themselves Christian, and but I remember some of that scene coming into the Christian world, and I remember this coffee house, and I think it was a really cool place. I do.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it was a place where parents can drop off their kids and go, oh, they're safe over here.
Right. It's Christian. They got to be safe. Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's like 90% of all religion is, wait, we can drop our kids off and leave? Yeah. Somebody will watch our kids for us for like an hour and a half and we can sit and talk to other grown-ups. Holy shit. Yes. Let's do
Right.
that.
And then the kids come out and they go to the parents and the parents say, hey, what was going on there? And the Christian child says, oh, it was all about the Lord.
Yeah, that's right. She got one of they got out one of those fuzzy boards where you could stick the characters to the board and they told us Bible stories on it. Yeah. I don't know what the hell those things are called. The Velcro things. I don't know.
So the channel you got, is it doing well? You're happy with it?
Yeah, it's doing pretty well. I feel like I'm like branching out right now, trying to do a little bit more because I don't know. I started just doing mostly live stuff. And I think that was mostly out of my laziness because it's, I'm not the best. I have like crippling ADHD. So it's really difficult for me to sit down and plan stuff out, but I'm going to do it. God damn it. I'm going to make myself do it. But more recently, I've kind of cut back on doing live streams and I'm trying to do a bit more like scripted or pre-recorded type stuff. It's going. We'll just go with that. Yeah. We're getting there though.
I'm trying to mix it up, figure.
Yeah.
I do lives, but I don't have the following where I get a lot of people in the lives.
No, yeah.
It's like I like to talk to people. I like to talk to Christians a lot too. Like I don't mind debating.
Okay. Yeah.
That's okay for me.
Have you tried TikTok yet?
I set up a TikTok and it didn't work for me. I mean, it's not even functioning right.
Oh, damn.
Something went wrong in the setup on my desktop.
Well, do it you got to do it on your phone. Don't do it on the desktop.
Yeah, I like desktop.
I know. It messed up for me too on that. So I think that's a TikTok thing. I don't know. There's studio.
Yeah, it's like it's not even doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah,
so I'm kind of frustrated with it.
Yeah, I think they intend for you to use the phone first, and then the studio is something that they will do later or whatever. But because I couldn't get it to work, I'm going to be honest. So but with the phone, you can debate. You can talk to people. I kind of want to go back to doing that because the cool thing is, and I haven't done this yet, but I've noticed other people do this where they will take their phone and go. They'll do a live on their phone. Right. And then they'll put it on speaker and they'll set their phone down in front of them and then they'll do their regular live, but they'll say, I'll take calls, right. Through TikTok. And then they put the other microphone up to the phone and then they can take calls that way, on their lives. So it's kind of a cool little trick. If you ever want to try that. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm experimenting with it. I'm an old guy. I never did anything like this. So it's all fun for me, really. I like to have a good time. And the important part of it for me is what we're doing today. Just people who have a like mind and understand the mythological aspects of these religions and have come out of it, that we should have a voice in the community at large. And hopefully some of it sinks in the political world too, because there's a link with religion and politics. There's definitely a link there,
Oh yeah.
And
unfortunately.
And you can be an atheist and be completely radical right wing. That's possible.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to be the norm.
No, we're not as easy to lie to, I think. Makes it a little bit difficult,
Well, once you start grounding your beliefs in reality, it goes in a different direction usually,
Right. Well, because a lot of, and it's just, I'm just realizing this lately. Not just lately, but like back when I was stopping drinking, like a big part of how we think about things it's interesting because it's all kind of put into our identity, right? And so like I had to start thinking of myself as somebody that doesn't drink, as a non-drinker, right? Because our identities are like just so entrenched in how we decide things are true and stuff. So thinking about it that way almost like took like it made it a lot easier to stop, let me put it that way. But I think that a lot of people do make decisions based off of their identity like that, right? And so if you can be like, hey, you're part of this group, you're supposed to think this sort of stuff, that works on a lot of people, which is really weird, that they're like, you said that you're a this, right? You said you're a Christian. Well, Christians are supposed to be against abortion. So I just so you know, that's murder. Even though the Bible literally says in Numbers chapter 5, verse 11, hey, women can be forced to have an abortion if their husband even believes that she might be pregnant from somebody besides him. He could force her to get an abortion. But like Christians are supposed to be against abortion. But it's all, it's just an identity.
All because they think the God says or doesn't say anything. Right. And they're against abortion primarily because they're being taught that from the pulpits.
Yeah. Well, it was a manipulation thing, right? Because they were trying to get the evangelicals, the moral majority, as it used to be coined. They wanted to get them as a voting bloc, and so they were trying to figure out like what issue. And originally, this is the crazy thing. Originally, the issue was racism. They were trying to keep black kids out of schools and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But that became very unpalatable, right, for a lot of the Christian right. And so they were like, okay, I guess that can't be the unifying wedge issue. So then they moved it over to abortion, which previously had not been along party lines at all. It was sort of just like a philosophical question, right. I don't know, about when life starts, whatever. It was just sort of like every individual had like a different thing, but they made it a Christian thing so that they could make those Christians Republicans, right? And it worked. It worked really well.
Definitely. And I'm old enough to remember when the moral majority was started and came around.
Oh wow! Yeah,
I'm old enough.
Right, that was Reagan, right? That was the Reagan time.
No, but even before that, the thing with Jerry Falwell Sr., he's the one who actually created this thing called the moral majority.
That's right,
and it was a political thing, but it was saying that these born again evangelical type Christians have to unite around politics, and impact their communities, by sticking together. And that's what became Christian nationalism in my understanding. That's what, it evolved to what we would now say is Christian nationalism.
Right.
Christians have to seize control of their government. Christians have to be the authorities in power.
Right.
And
that is terrifying. But it is. I used to say that. I used to be like, well, these, all these people are being controlled by Satan. We can't have them making decisions for all of us. I gotta, that was like, but geez, yeah.
It is. It's really pathetic, isn't it, when you think about it?
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, it's just sad that this sort of thing works. But it does work because humans are not that difficult to figure out. We're easy to mess with, You kind of just, and really the one thing that abortion provided for them was just this ability to vilify the other team constantly. If you can, because humans innately want to protect innocence, especially babies, right? So if you rhetorically just continuously call an entire political party baby unalivers or whatever, or people that want to unalive baby, and just repeat that, that's gonna work. That's gonna motivate people, right? Even though all they did was just equivocate, they just changed the definition for what murder is and people and turned it into just not giving birth, which is insane. Nobody would ever think that's the same thing as unaliving somebody or whatever, like, actual murder. But if you repeat it enough, it just gets in people's brains, and that's it. That's it. We're easy. We can be brainwashed pretty simply.
Totally agree with you. And it's why we need to stick together and do these things, because people are so easily manipulated.
Yeah.
So if you're at a point in your life where you at least think things through critically, and you're trying to stand for truth as it is in reality, we need more voices like that to get out there, because the Christians are well funded, and they're well organized,
Yep.
and they do repetition, and repetition does condition our brains, because we are just human beings with brains,
Right.
We are easily, pulled in different directions.
Oh yeah.
So that's why it's important to do, what you're doing, and I appreciate that. So let me end this with anything you want to say about your channel or about your agenda, if you have any at all. All right, and tell people about your channel. Of course, I'll put it in the link when I post the video. But last thoughts.
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate you doing this, honestly, because you're right. We do need more. We need a lot more voices out there, and more people that are just encouraging people to think critically, irrespective of whether or not their in-group would think it's true or not. Whatever. Like, just you need to get people to just think, like, just try to figure out what's actually true, right? And crave that instead of just going, I don't know, what does my team say? We're supposed to think like that, because that's what they do. But yeah, I do punk apostate, and it's mostly, honestly, excuse me, punk apostate, and it's usually mostly what I do is to react to FundyTube and kind of have fun with it, in a lot of ways to like heal from religious trauma and stuff like that. But because laughter does help with that sort of thing, as well as, I hope, just opening up people's eyes, that maybe are Christians. Maybe they'll show up on my channel and be like, and continue to listen. I don't know, but but mostly it's a preaching to the choir kind of show. Is my point. And so for atheists to go and kind of laugh and heal from the beliefs that used to terrorize us when we were growing up, for apostates anyway, but other people I think can just enjoy it because it is just fun and funny. But yeah, that's what I do. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Sundays in the morning, 10, like around 10 to 10 or 10 to 10:30 in those mornings, do live streams. Right. But like I said, I'm trying to work on more stuff lately, branch out. But thank you so much for having me, man. This is awesome.
All right. And anyone watching the stream, like the video, subscribe, go over to the Punk Apostate channel and subscribe, and let's stay together and create a more rational world. Peace.
Hell yeah.